Hi, it's Diane. Thanks for joining us today. Today we are reviewing the Hermetic Principle of Rhythm. I'm going to start with an opening prayer. The all is orderly and grows whatever is planted. We have the choice to plant all our desires. We enjoy breathing the flowers of love. We are so thankful for the powerful seeds of love planted by all. We release the need to force our plants to grow the way we want and the speed we want. We trust the all to surprise us with the new blossoms. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the sharing section. I have a double ear infection right now, actually, because me and my son we went to the beach and we were playing in the waves. We were out where we can kind of ride over them and it's super fun. And this one big wave came and we didn't even look, like we floated over it and we were both like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Yeah. And all of a sudden the backlash of that big wave, it literally crashed on the sand and flipped back and hit us. And we're both like, "Whoa, that was a big wave." And of course, we know from just going to the beach and living here that once there's a big wave, they usually come in sets, right? So you got that first one that knocked that startled you, right? And then it looked to make sure he was looking towards the ocean. And I looked towards the ocean at the same time in my glance, and there's a big wave coming, right? And I go to jump over it, and it hit me right at that spot where it's flipping and I'm up, and I didn't have enough balance, or it wasn't in the right lean to push myself through it. And so it took me off balance, tumbled me a whole lot. I mean, I jammed in the bottom, hit the bottom of the ocean. My feet, my feet were above the water at some point. I mean, I have a bruise. So at some point, my ear, it hurt so bad. And then I got back and started feeling better. And then the next day or so, I came down with double ear infections. So, you know, the wave knocked the wind out of me. And as soon as I got up, even though my ear was killing me, I checked Jaden. Well, he had rode the wave above it and was perfectly fine. But me, I got pulled with it and all jumbled around with it and knocked around a bit. And then as soon as I got above it again and, you know, checked around for my loved ones, there he was. And I grabbed him and I'm like, "It's dangerous, we're getting out," you know, and pulled him up to shore. And then we went in the house because my ear was hurting, and it still hurts right now. It's kind of hard for me because my brother died about a year ago, and he had hearing problems and ear infection problems. He was deaf. I think he was considered legally deaf. So the whole ear pain thing, I feel connected to him. So that's nice. So thank you, David, for being here with us. And thank you, everyone else, for being here with us. So now I'm going to go into the lesson section on rhythm. And let me just say, this is one of my favorite Hermetic principles. I may just say that every video, but I found the Kabbalion and started reading it and reading it and reading it. And this principle really helped me forgive myself for that which I was torturing myself, because it helped me change my mindset so that I was no longer responsible for all that was around or all that was happening. and as we get through it, I hope that we understand. But I feel like this, if you're working on forgiveness, or if you just hate yourself so much because of something you did, and no matter what anybody says, you know, using whatever you feel in your heart, that, you know. So if that's the case, I think this law might give you some relief, as it did for me. The Hermetic principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has tides. Everything rises and falls. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure to the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The principle in rhythm embodies the truth in that there is manifested a measured motion, a to and from motion between the two poles manifesting on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes. What this is saying is, we went over that everything is energy. We went over that everything that is this energy is vibrating. Then we went into the principle of polarity, saying that everything has its opposites, and all poles basically have their opposite in swing, and everything swings between the two in movement. So now we're going into here that everything's moving, and not only are they moving, everything's moving in this rhythm between the two poles. This doesn't mean that it's always going to the one extreme to the next extreme. It's not that at all. It's basically every person, every experience, every matter falls within where it normally falls. And it's moving from one direction into the next direction from where it is on the plane. And it's going towards this one major pole, and then it's going towards this one major pole. But the swing is ever towards the first pole and then the other. So if you remember in the principle of polarity, it says the natural state is always positive. As it's stating here, it's always going towards the first pole, the positive pole. Suns, worlds, wind, men, animals, plants, minerals, forces, energy, mind, matter, yes, even spirit manifests this principle. So basically, everything in the all and everything in the not all is subject to this principle, and it is law for that which they are creating, and that in which they're experiencing, and that which they are vibrating. Thus, it is with all the worlds, they are born, grow, and die, only to be reborn. And thus, it is with all things of shape and form. They swing from action to reaction, from birth to death, from activity to inactivity, and then back again. And so it is with great movement, philosophies, creeds, fashions, governments, nations, and all else birth, growth, maturity, decadence, death, and then new birth. The swing of the pendulum is ever present. There is no such thing as absolute rest from movement, and all movement partakes in rhythm. There is always a rhythmic string from one pole to another. Principles of rhythm are very evident. I see the tides of the ocean. It's interesting to me because I lived in Michigan where we had the seasons, and then moved to Costa Rica where I thought we wouldn't have the seasons, but interesting enough, they do have seasons, because half the year it doesn't rain a drop, and the other half it rains every other day in buckets for a few hours. That changes the whole entire climate and the whole entire experience. So what they discovered enabled them to rise to a higher plane and thus escape the swing of the rhythm pendulum, which manifests on the lower plane. This is how I see it. You're out in the world and you're your light and I'm my light, and we're all in this flow of life and energy, and the energy is all going into one motion. And then, you know, like the wave, it comes to a point where it changes rhythm and goes towards the next direction. And we're all in that, inside of us, doing the same thing, in this big thing, doing the same thing. Everyone's all flexing together. So that's all going on. And while that's going on, there's a way for everyone, for each of us, that the Hermetists found, and how they saw it is they would notice when the rhythm is such that it's going in a direction that they know harms who they really are, and the light and the color that they want to resonate. And then they know that this rhythmic time is difficult. And so what they do is they pull themselves into this whole phase that's above all this that is twisting. They keep the majority of themselves in that which is not twisting, so that when it's calmed, they emerge in such a light, because they weren't bouncing around in the wave, such as what I talked about earlier, where I was bouncing around and hurt myself, and my son was able to pull above and was not affected by what was going on below. So that's what some of those who study this were able to do, to know the Hermetic masters are able to, and advanced students are able to take this even further. And what they do is they polarize themselves to a desired pull, and by a process akin to refusing a particle in a backward swing, or if you prefer, a denial of its influence over him, he stands firm in his polarized position and allows the mental pendulum to swing back along the unconscious plane. And this reminds me of standing sideways with my feet firm on the ground, so that when that wave comes, I'm able to balance myself through. All individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery accomplish this more or less unknowingly by refusing to allow their moods and negative mental states to affect them. They apply the law of neutralization. The master takes this even higher degree of proficiency, and by the use of his will obtains a great degree of poise and mental firmness, almost impossible to believe on the part of those who allow themselves to be swung backwards and forwards in the mental pendulum of moods and swings. And so this is basically saying the master is able to plant their feet firmly on the ground using all their skills and wisdom and knowledge, and they are able to position themselves so that when that wave does come, in which it always does, they are able to stay aligned, center, and be the poise and light and the lighthouse and beacon for all those floating around, either on the top, above the wave, or crashing below the wave. They are able to just be there and strong and light the way. And that is truly, truly an amazing blessing. I'm going to go ahead and keep going because my favorite part is coming. The next concept it goes into, the measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. To be noted, the Hermetics mean counterbalance. It's always equal on each side. They teach that the man's mental states are subject to the same laws. The rule is the capacity for pain and pleasure in each individual are balanced. They teach that before one is able to enjoy a certain degree of pleasure, they must have swung as far proportionately towards the other pole of feeling. They hold, however, that negative is precedent to the positive in this matter. That is to say that in experiencing a certain degree of pleasure, it does not follow that he will have to pay up for it with the corresponding degree of pain. On the contrary, the measure is the rhythmic swing according to the law of compensation for a degree of pain previously experienced. This is exactly what I've experienced. I noticed in my life, and in others' lives I've seen and experienced, what happens is they're going through and they're getting bounced around, such as I was, and they got knocked into a point where they were hurt. And you kind of think of a child when they come to you crying and you're like, don't cry, pull yourself up, come on, you can do it. We're really trained at a really young age that those bad feelings are bad, and I was trained that bad stuff, you sweep it up, you take care of it, you wrap it up, and then you put it to the side and you focus on these good feelings. What I learned actually from an interesting book, I can't remember the name of it, but basically it talked about developing the child's brain, and for a child to deal with some sort of trauma or some sort of event that took the wind out of their sails, so to speak, or threw them about in the waves, the energy around that doesn't flow, and it literally stops moving, and so it becomes this denseness. And so this horrible thing happened, and then this denseness filled that space that used to be whatever ended at that horrible thing. That space is held, pushed against, so that energy can never flow through. It's constantly pushing against that which we don't want to feel. And they say the best thing is to just get a child to talk about it and recognize, that's horrible, it's not supposed to happen. Almost just saying that, it like melts it somehow, instead of saying like, pull it together, you're better than this. That in connotation is basically saying, it's like pushing against it and then deeping it down deeper. And so what happens is then when you're in these happy, joyful states, you feel joy, but because you have this darkness like looming behind you, it affects it and it drains your light. Yeah, you can't move on the pendulum as far. You can only move as far as you are willing to let flow. I always thought, this karma thing, or, in a lot of the churches, they call it, it's kind of like you reap what you sow. And so I always felt like when something bad happened, it's because I deserved it and I screwed up. And therefore, somehow I created it. And I feel like a lot of people in the New Thought movement really believe that. If I can be happy enough, nothing ever bad will happen. And therefore, when something bad happens, it's my fault. Well, when you have something so bad happen that you can't live with yourself, if it's your fault, then that's a really bad belief, and it is a torturesome belief. And that's not what's taught at all. In reading this, it freed me and melted away my responsibility for the rhythm of the universe. So whatever you think is your fault, you have somebody else to blame. It's called the natural rhythm of the all. This karma thing is not true either, because the natural state is the light, and the natural state is the good. And they hold, however, that the negative is precedent to the positive in this nature. That is to be said, in the experience of a certain degree of pleasure, it does not follow that he will have to pay up for it. On the contrary, the pleasure is the rhythmic swing for the pain previously experienced. So therefore, what it's saying is when you got bumped around and you got that pain ripped open this opportunity for all this energy to flow through you and push you through the tunnel of darkness into the other side. And so what happens is we're so busy pushing against that because we don't want to feel it, because for some reason it's bad to feel that it's literally ripping us up inside, ripping me up, and torturing me to the point that sometimes I literally explode. Knowing that whether I'm perfect or not does not matter. And this pain happens because of natural rhythm, and the benefit of shooting through that pain and that tunnel of darkness into the somewhere more glorious is a personal choice. It's always there because of that pain, and enjoying the fruits of what was created from that does not somehow dishonor that pain. No, it opens it up. It honors it. It's like when grandma works hard on dinner and her feet are so swollen, you don't not eat the food, you say thank you and do the dishes. The advanced student is able to a great degree to escape the swing towards pain by a process of neutralization before mentioned. By swinging on a higher plane, much of the experience that comes to those dwelling on the lower pain is avoided and escaped. And I think that we see this. You see two people go through the same heretic experience. One person comes out just broken, and the other person takes that which that experience was and creates such an amazing light that no one can even believe it. So the question is how do people move through it differently? And what I found is the people that go down what I call the road of darkness is because they're pushing that against is that which they don't want to feel, because they have not developed the skills in which to find a way to move through this, because when they were a toddler, in which we developed those brain waves, either some trauma happened or their parents don't know how, so they couldn't teach them how, and so it's just not developed. In being a master and going back to it, we're reminded that we need to come up with tools for ourselves, tools that work for ourselves, so that we can use the law of neutralization, and that when these painful events and these turning times come up that are so crushing, it doesn't become a trauma for us, it becomes a fuel, a stepping stone in a push for something better. And how do we do that? Well, we first start by focusing on little things. you know, taking time out in nature, I think is the best thing possible. And just go sit under a tree and let your eyeballs dance around at what you see. And the way to do it is to give yourself a space where you can step away from everything and just be, and to feel and be safe. And when you have a safe place and a safe way to express your feelings for whatever they are, then you're able to build better tools, and so that you can move through these events and still enjoy other people in a connection and pleasure, instead of trying to numb all these things and then blocking off all the pleasure that comes from it. And so it is through life. The law of compensation is ever in operation, striving to balance and counterbalance, and always succeeding in time for the return swing of the pendulum of rhythm, but always compensating forward and backwards. This too shall pass. And so if you're having a hard time, it's perfectly fine to withdraw, protect yourself, and feel and come to some sort of knowing with yourself about what that is. So that's my portion on rhythm. I'm going to go ahead and do a aligning and centering, and then go into the closing prayer. So thank you. I do a live Zoom of this recording every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And I'm just so happy to share with you all my magic tools on how to make it through to another sunset. So thank you for being here. So go ahead and get comfortable. Straighten your spine, ground your feet if you can. If not, do it visually. I like to kind of just wiggle it all out, so to speak. It's fun to just do a figure 8 all the time, but usually a lot of times I just do a circle. Okay. Do what you need to do to be aligned and centered. Imagine a great white light illuminating through you, starting at your heart center, beaming outwards, radiating up towards the highest, most farthest part, and radiating down to the farthest molecules in the ground. You're aligned. You see this light is it's a strong pull. I mean, you're so strong and protected all the time by this light, and you decide with your mind what you want to allow in and not allow in. So take a deep breath now and just notice all that you allow into your light. Now, if there's anything in this moment, anything you notice in your light that's making you feel uncomfortable, or any kind of discord, or you're just no longer resonating with it there, just imagine it floating to its natural place. And as the waves of rhythm and energy go around, you stay grounded, strong, feet on the ground, arms in the air. And you know this rhythm just sweeping that away. And all you have to do is stop holding on to it. Just float, and all will align as it is to be. You're grounded, supported. Strong, wise. You put what you know is right first, always, because you love yourself. And so in times of great rhythm, you always put yourself and knowing first. This is a time of great divide where you really have an opportunity to become that which you've always known you are. Trust yourself. Hear the next step in being more grounded, more aligned, and sharing that for all to see. The light of all surrounds us. The love of all enfolds us. The power of all watches over us. Wherever we are, all is, and that's the truth. Bye now.